kind of did kill mainstream media, if you think about it.
I did.
And that could be a crime for those guys.
I'm very proud of it.
With Trump winning the 2024 election by a landslide, I think it's safe to say we can all feel the difference in the air. Mainstream media is in shambles. They pulled all the tricks out of the bag and still lost. The most recent reports show trust in mainstream media is at an all-time low, and I think we have two very specific people to thank for this, Trump and Elon. Today we're going to dive into how the right has effectively turned the tides in the media war.
And I want to show you this clip because this is the first time ever the phrase fake news was ever used. And from this moment on is when the decline started. Rob, if you can go on and play this clip.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? Mr. President-elect.
Mr.
President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization.
Your organization.
Can you give us a chance to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state categorically,
She's asking a question. Don't
Mr.
be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you give us a question?
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
So, if you can
But
pause
isn't
it there.
that disgusting? Think of it. And that would never happen to a Democrat.
That argument right there would lead to create one of the most revolutionary terms of the decade. Fake news spread like fire, and actually gave a physical phrase to what was going on in real time. But even after being exposed, it didn't really change anything, did it? The left continued to spew whatever fit the narrative at the time. They supported BLM, who got caught committing fraud and spending donations on mansions. They supported illegal immigration, which turned into a border disaster. Not to mention the greatest one of all, covering up Joe Biden's mental deterioration until it couldn't be covered up anymore. But Trump, no matter the situation and the odds, didn't back down. The only man in history to take on the Democratic machine at a level never seen before.
I also am responsible for the term fake news. And that's a great term, but it's not strong enough. I think it's corrupt news is a better term, but it doesn't play as well. But they're corrupt people and disgusting people. But he is, he wasn't as bad as some. I mean, in a certain way, he was louder, but he wasn't as smart as some. I mean, some are much smarter. He's not a smart one.
Did you think you were going to say fake news, or was it just kind of came out and then it stuck? You're like, this is going to stick. Was it intentional?
I don't know if that's the first time I've used it. But I do get credit for having been an originator of the term. I mean, a lot of times I have a very fertile mind. I come up with very good names for people.
You're very creative.
Pocahontas,
yes.
Lots of good names. But, I don't know if that's the first time, but I thought of that term often. And more so as I was running. I actually used to get great press when I was an entrepreneur. I would get very glamorous press, very beautiful press.
Mm-hmm.
I went the exact opposite, and I was amazed. And I really learned how corrupt it was. I didn't think of it as that corrupt because I'd do something and they give me credit.
Mm-hmm.
No, I had a very different life actually when you think about it. But then I run for president. So 92% of the people that run for presidents, 92% were politicians and 8% were generals. So I wasn't a politician, I wasn't a general. So I was the only one that wasn't in that group. No, there were no admirals. They were all either politicians or they were sort of an interesting point. Most people don't know that. Some people said that's interesting.
That makes sense because even Reagan would be a politician because he was a two-term governor.
Well, he was a politician.
Right, he was a politician,
he was a governor. There were some that were businessmen, but they then ran for the Senate or they were in Congress, and they went from there to the presidency. But nobody ever went right to the presidency. I never ran for office. All of a sudden, I'm president, and I really learned about the press early and the hard way because I went from one extreme to the other. I got great press, and then all of a sudden, I was treated like by a moron like that, and I fought them very hard. They're very dishonest. They're very corrupt. Not all of them, but a big percentage of them. I would say in the 80s, that's a lot. That's a lot. Big percentage. They're very corrupt.
Now think what you want about Trump, whether you are also a Republican or not, but he is probably one of the most well-informed people in the world. A multimillionaire who has just been elected to his second term as president of the most powerful country in the world. He knows some things. And he is saying that approximately 85% of the news being reported is fake. Think how many people that 85% hits and how that can alter an election. I believe that's how we lost in 2020. There was a poll taken after the 2020 election that said if voters knew about the extent of the Hunter Biden case, they would not have still voted for Joe, and it showed a 9% swing. If that 9% doesn't vote or votes for Trump, we win the 2020 election. But the corrupt media put a stop to it.
Very corrupt.
Have they always been? Has it always been the case? You've been around media, TV.
I don't think it's ever
life.
been like this. Yeah, I've been around it for a long time. I don't think it's ever been like
When
this.
do you think it
when
flipped?
I started off, Patrick, I used to have a story written about me. And without fail, somebody would call after the story was written but not published. And they were called fact checkers. Hello, sir. We're calling about a story that we wrote about you. Is it true that you own this? And is it true that you did this? And that you spent X dollars? Could we check that number? Blah, blah, blah. And it would go on for a while to a point where you'd get somebody else to just do it. But they, without fail, I'd have, if there were any details in a story, not always, but if there were any details, always, and they would call fact checkers. Hello, sir. My name's Jim Smith. I'm a fact checker for the New York Times. And they check the facts of a story. And I think they at least were trying to be real. I haven't had a fact checker call me in 30 years. They don't call anymore.
Do you
They
think
used to
that's
call
because of the
all time.
Fairness Doctrine Act of 1987? Because prior to that, the media platforms had to actually give both sides of the story. And then once that was dropped, they lost the accountability. They could say whatever they want to say. And it was kind of free for all. Let me go after them. But for you, when you became a president, if someone's running for office, you have to sit there and think about issues. Here's what I'm running on: wall, border, economy, XYZ. Great. Obama, I'm going to go after healthcare.
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter, I'm going to go human rights. You pick and choose what you're running for. But there's also an element of who are going to be my allies, who are going to be my enemies. Did you sit there and say, the enemy of the people is media, I'm going to go after them? Or did you say, no, this happened accidentally? Was this intentional or was it accidental?
I think it's just long-term happened. It morphed into it. I don't think they said.
I'm talking
but
specifically
I can tell
for you, though.
Yeah. For me, look, I'm the worst case because there's nobody been abused like I have. And I don't think, although I guess probably some, but for a shorter period of time. There's nobody for over such a long.
Who would you put? You even thought about it. Who do you think? For sure.
I'd have to think short term. People have been abused. Yeah, over one deal and they're gone. Or something.
I got it.
But I've been doing this for a long time. Right. And I've abused them also. So, I do that.
What did you target them and say, I'm going to go attack media and I'm going to go after them? Is that part of strategy that you had? Or no, that was just,
no.
If you come after me, I'm going to come after you?
No, I think it's a natural instinct with me, like it would be for you and other people that know how to win a little bit.
Sure.
No, but I really saw it in politics. I would tell them something and they would write the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what's that all about? I called up, the Washington Post was treating me very bad. New York Times is probably the worst, but the two of them are really bad. And I know how to deal with the press. I'm a professional, I'm a smart guy, and I know. So I said, watch, I'm going to call the press in, Washington Post, during my first or second year.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm going to call the Washington Post. I'm not going to joke. I'm not going to be cute. I'm not going to be a wise guy. I'm going to just call them in. And I want to talk, and I'm going to explain what a great job I've done on different things, like the economy. I had a great economy, all that. And I called them in. I was very nice. I didn't say, hey, how's it going? Everything was really professional.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers were fantastic. Everything was perfect. And I treated them with great respect, shook their hand, and it was over. And the next day they wrote a horrible story, It was.
So even when he plays by the book, it's still not enough, and it's gotten worse. His press coverage actually wasn't that bad in 2016 leading up to the election because Hillary was so far ahead in the polls, they didn't take him seriously. But the second, and I do mean the second, the vote count was in and the realization took place the game was over because an outsider won, they did a full 360 on him, and it continued for 8 years straight. The most desperate and pathetic it got was over the last 12 months. In the course of the last year, Trump transformed into a Nazi, fascist, racist, womanizing bigot, depending on the network and the day of the week. Trump is the biggest threat to democracy the country has ever seen, not 9/11. Trump is going to take away all of women's rights everywhere, even though a ton of his cabinet picks are women. We've all heard the nonsense they've come up with, but according to the vote count, we all saw right through it. Not to mention one of the most game-changing plays of all. It became so extreme even lifelong Democrat Elon Musk saw it for what it was and changed sides. Not only sending a shockwave through the system because he has so much money he can't be bought, but personally buying out one of the most corrupt sources of media and changing the tides. Now, these next clips are from Elon and Don Lemon's interview, and although I mainly refuse to watch Don Lemon, what's important here is Elon's answers. So let's play the clips.
Yes, you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at
Yes,
all.
you do.
No, I want responsibility. I think there.
You desperately want censorship.
No, if I want a censorship.
You want censorship so bad you can taste it.
No, that's not true. It's not true. I think that there's right and wrong. And I think that,
you want censorship.
and I think that when you have a platform that's as big as yours and as powerful as yours and as influential as yours, and you are a person of consequence to the world with what you do, that there is a certain responsibility that goes along with what you have on your platform and what you put out to the world. And I think that's important. You don't see that responsibility?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and if people want the law changed, they should talk to their elected representative and get the law changed, and then we will adhere to the law.
Okay.
But if you want us to go beyond the law, that is us deciding to be censors.
So,
And I'm against censorship. I'm in favor of freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't like say things you don't like. Otherwise, it has no meaning.
but I do think that there should be guardrails. And I believe in free speech as much as you. I would fight. I don't disagree. I don't agree with a lot of what you put out on social media, but I will fight for your right to be able to say it.
Great. I acquired X in order to preserve freedom of speech in America, the First Amendment. And I'm going to stick to that. And if that means making less money, so be it.
So I have to be, listen, I'm just being honest, right? I'm not trying to, get you or anything. I was just surprised that you would blame other people for killing the company. I mean, when you say the buck stops with the President of the United States, regardless of what happens, right? So, why would that question upset you? You seem upset by it, are you?
I think you.
And I'm not trying to upset you.
Well, you are upsetting me because the way you're phrasing the questions, I think, is not cogent.
It's not what?
Not cogent.
Cogent.
Yes.
Go ahead.
If given a choice where an advertiser is saying you have to censor all this content on the platform, irrespective of where their advertising appears, then our answer will be look, you can choose where you want your advertising, what you want your advertising to appear next to, but you can't insist on censorship of the entire platform. And if you insist on censorship of the entire platform, even where your advertising doesn't appear, then obviously we will not want them as an advertiser.
Now, this is just one clip in particular, but this whole interview covered a vast variety of topics ranging from woke mind virus to DEI. This specific section where Elon makes it blatantly clear the only reason he bought Twitter was to rebalance the scale and protect the First Amendment is very important. Although he might not have been born in America, if that isn't the most American thing I've heard, then I don't know what is. To expand on that, he took a $25 billion loss at first on Twitter. Now X. $25 billion. All to help balance the scale. He probably has thousands of accountants in his employ that told him, this is a bad idea, we will lose money, and he did it anyway to give conservatives a place to be heard. I think his role in the 2024 election was much greater than we all give credit to. From campaigning in Pennsylvania to exposing the left's radical ideas, I think he swayed more than 1 or 2 voters.
Let's get to the bigger issue. In 2017, last year, you tweeted this, and I want to quote it accurately. The fake news media is not my enemy, it is the enemy of the American people.
It's true, 100%. Not the media. I'm glad you're finally quoting it correctly, because they like to leave the fake news
Okay,
out.
but that's what you said.
Now, fake news. So
But
the people that are supporting me in particular, they're very smart people. They're hardworking, brilliant, great people. They know when the news is fake. And they get angry when they see all of the fakeness frankly, the networks.
There have been people who've been critical of other presidents. No president has liked his press coverage. John Kennedy, in your Oval Office, canceled the subscription to the New York Herald Tribune. Nobody called it the enemy of the American people.
Chris, I'm calling the fake news is the enemy. It's fake. It's phony.
But
They'll
a lot
take
of times,
something
sir, it's
good.
just news you don't
No,
like.
it's not. No. I don't mind getting bad news if I'm wrong. If I do something wrong, like, for instance, the cemetery, I was not allowed to go because of the Secret Service, because they expected to take a helicopter.
Okay.
They had zero visibility. They said, sir, we are totally unequipped for you to go. In addition to that, the cemetery was far too far away from Air Force One, which is sort of like a control center where you had to be near. Not one paper that I saw wrote it that way. They said I stayed out of it because of the rain. And yet, the following day, I made a speech at the American Cemetery. It was pouring. It wasn't even really raining the first day, but the fog was tremendous, okay?
But, sir, leaders in authoritarian countries like Russia, China, Venezuela, now repress the media using your words.
I can't talk for other people. I can only talk for me. I will tell you.
But you're seen around the world as a beacon for
Chris,
repression, not for...
I'm not talking about you, but you sometimes maybe, but I'm not talking about you. The news about me is largely phony. It's false. Even sometimes they'll say, sources say. There is no source in many cases. In many cases there is.
I understand you don't like your coverage.
No.
Can I just bring the bigger...
94%
Can I bring the bigger issue up?
Yeah.
Bill McRaven, retired admiral, Navy SEAL, 37 years, former head of U.S. Special Operations.
Hillary Clinton fan.
Special Operations.
Excuse me, Hillary Clinton fan.
Who led the operations, commanded the operations that took down Saddam Hussein and that killed Osama bin Laden, says that your sentiment is the greatest threat to democracy in his lifetime.
He's a Hillary Clinton backer and an Obama backer. And frankly,
he was a Navy SEAL.
Wouldn't it have been nice if we got Osama bin Laden a lot sooner than that? Wouldn't it have been nice? You know, think of this. Living in Pakistan, beautifully in Pakistan, in what I guess they considered a nice mansion. I don't know, I've seen nicer. But living in Pakistan, right next to the military academy, everybody in Pakistan knew he was there. And we give Pakistan $1.3 billion a year. And they don't tell him. They don't tell him.
You're not even going to give
years.
them credit for taking down bin Laden?
They took him down, but look. There's news right there. He lived in Pakistan. We're supporting Pakistan. We're giving them $1.3 billion a year, which we don't give them anymore, by the way. I ended it because they don't do anything for us. They don't do a damn thing for us. I'm totally in favor of the media. I'm totally in favor of free press. It's got to be fair press. When it's fake.
But the president get to decide what's fair and what's not.
I can tell what's fair and not. And so can my people, and so can a lot of other people.
I understand that, but
when you do something very good and they write it badly, and this is consistently, when you... As an example, rarely do they talk about...
Barack Obama whined about Fox News all the time, but he never said we were the enemy of the people.
Well, no, he didn't talk about the news. He didn't talk about anything. I'm only saying it very differently than anyone's ever said it before. I'm saying fake news, false reporting, dishonest reporting, of which there is a lot, and I know it. See, I know it because I'm a subject of it. A lot of people don't know it, but when I explain it to them, they understand it. And Chris, you know that better than you don't have to sit here and act like a perfect little, wonderful, innocent angel. I know you too well. I knew your father too well. That's not your gene. But let me tell you,
I think some of the coverage of you, sir, and I've said it on the record, is biased. But I don't think that
most of it is biased.
I don't know, but the idea that you call us the enemy of the people.
I'm not calling you that.
I'm talking about we're all together.
You don't understand it.
We're all together.
No. I'm not calling you.
It doesn't matter whether you call. When you call CNN and the New York Times,
I am calling.
And we're in solidarity, sir.
I am calling fake news, fake reporting is what's tearing this country apart, because people like things that are happening, and they're not hearing about it.
Trump worded it exactly right. Fake news is the enemy of the American people. And that, I believe, is a big reason they lost this election. When people begin to lose trust in what they are being told, they start thinking for themselves more. 4 more years of fake stories being spoon-fed to us, or the cold hard truth. Trust in the media is at an all-time low. Ratings for leftist shows across the board are tanking. Hosts are being paid less and being turned off more. The whole point of this video was to show how the puppet leftists have lost their handle over controlling everyday Americans, and it's thanks to Trump and Elon. On one hand, we have Trump, who has been absolutely tortured by the media, government agencies, judges, and DAs for 8 years because he wanted to tell us the truth. And then we have Elon, a man who sacrificed $25 billion to make a difference, and spent much, much more on that, giving financial aid to Trump, not to mention the time he spent campaigning for him. The media war has slowly but surely taken a turn since 2016. With viewership at an all-time low, the people can't be controlled and manipulated as before. Every day, more and more independent reporters and news outlets like myself pop up. And thank God, because it's about the only place you can find an honest opinion nowadays. I get all my news from private YouTubers who do their own research. But anyways, that's all I got, guys. Thanks for watching. Like and maybe subscribe for more. Thanks.